We are a week away from the expiration of Title 42, which is a big deal because, as you know, they've extended this, and Title 42 is a CDC pandemic authority that allows for the expulsion of certain illegal migrants under certain circumstances, even after they cross into America. And it has not been obviously super effective because there have been millions. Let's remind ourselves of this. Over 5 million illegals crossing into America while Joe Biden is president. But it has been a tool that has at least prevented some single adult males from being able to come into the country. If you're a unaccompanied minor, if you are a family member. I'll never forget when I was at the U.S. border crossing in San Diego, they told me that they had I think it was a 32-year-old claiming to be a 17-year-old to get through under the unaccompanied minor loophole. So just people are gaming the system left and right. Yeah, 32 said he was 17. They didn't buy that one, by the way. They thought, I don't think so. But there
maybe
are people that have been trying to game. What's up?
Just should have said he was trans age. Democrats would have had to be all in on it.
Still waiting for someone to explain why trans age isn't a thing if transgender is a thing. But I got to tell you, the border situation is something we have to look at much more closely because Democrats are beginning to seize a narrative on this one. Gavin Newsom, yes, he's slippery and odious, but he is also formidable in his own way. This guy escaped a recall election and actually increased his support from election in the recall. Clearly, he should have lost his job. He did not. Isn't it amazing? In California, they keep having these governors that are disastrous, and then they keep electing disastrous governors with the same basic policies to replace them. Maybe don't have Democrats ruin your state anymore, California. That would just be one idea. But here's Newsom talking about how, oh, man, it's going to be really difficult when we get to a post-42 world. Play 12.
The fact is, what we've got right now is not working, and it's about to break in a post-42 world unless we take some responsibility and ownership. And I'm saying that as a Democrat. I'm not saying that to point fingers. I'm saying that as a father. I'm saying that as someone that feels responsible for being part of the solution, and I'm trying to do my best here.
So I want everyone to understand this right up front, right now. We talk about the border a lot, and we're trying, because it matters a lot. And once you start to see the calculations, the media won't do this, what it means to the taxpayer, what it means to public resources, to public schools, to hospitals, to just have... And it's always specific to certain communities. One of the challenges when you elevate this to the national level, they say it doesn't affect wages. Really? Look at some of the border communities that have been, I think it's Professor Borjas at Harvard who's done the most specific analysis of this. You look, Clay, at certain communities when they have a huge influx of illegal migrants. Guess what happens? Wages go down, people and public services deteriorate. But if that's happening in El Paso, sure, maybe you don't feel it in San Francisco. So you have to look at the problem with some specificity. My point here, Clay, is merely they're saying, oh, yeah, the border's a problem. It's a problem, all right. We fix it through amnesty. That's what they're going to say. And I got to tell you right now, one voice that Trump provided that we don't really have right now is shutting down all the illegal crossings and deporting people who are not supposed to be in this country anymore, who fall into fall into specific categories. We're not hearing that from the GOP. I don't even know if anyone knows where the GOP stands right now on this issue. It's a concern.
Gavin Newsom took the trip to the border to embarrass Joe Biden. He went to the White House, and I'm never going to forget it, when Joe Biden wasn't there and walked around with his sleeves rolled up. Now, he made a big show of saying, hey, I'm not going to run if you run in 24. But if Joe Biden were not running, I think Gavin Newsom would end up finding a way to be the nominee in 2024 for the Democrats. And I think he would be formidable because he's smart. He's an incredible liar. He presents well. meaning that when he stands in front of the camera and answers questions, he handles the cosmetic aspects of the presidency far better than most Democrat candidates would be. Reportedly, he and Kamala Harris don't get along very well. Now, I don't know why that is, but that would mean that he's not likely to bend the knee to Kamala, and he would be capable of somehow threading the needle of how it's not racist and sexist for him as a white man to be leading the Democrat Party. And if you question that, keep in mind Joe Biden is the oldest, whitest guy possible, and he ended up the nominee in 2020. And so I don't think this is coincidental that he made his trip down to the border. I agree with you, Buck, that they think the solution is amnesty. Of course, it's not the solution. And the fact that Joe Biden won't go to the border, when does the Title 42 end? It's next week, right?
Yep.
So if it officially ends, it's going to be right around Christmas, which is a gift, frankly, to the Biden administration because a lot of people won't be paying attention. But post-Christmas and post-New Year's, the border is going to be such a disaster that it will be virtually impossible for it not to be the number one story in America.
There is a deep incoherence when you start to ask people who want to feel good about themselves on the issue of illegal immigration, but you ask them some very basic questions. And this is Democrats, and there are even Republicans who fall into this category. You start to ask this, well, if there's no downside, why not just let everyone come whenever they want? Because they'll tell you there's no downside. I mean, the argument gets very interesting. You'll say, if I point out, I say, well, it's lawless, lack of sovereignty, respect for our laws is important. It's a drain on resources. It overwhelms our ability as a nation to assimilate people properly, which is one of the things that America has been amazing at, for a very long time. It overwhelms the assimilation processes. It creates fractures in our society because people feel like there are different sets of laws for different people. You go through these, they'll reject all of that. They'll say, oh, no, that's true. We're a nation of immigrants. They work harder than Americans. I'm talking illegal immigrants now. They work harder than Americans. They're more law-abiding than Americans. I mean, either one of those things you can argue or even just say is flatly untrue. But then who doesn't get to stay? Why not let if there's no downside, which is what effectively the Democrat argument is, why not just have open borders? They won't say they want open borders, but they want the reality of open borders, meaning they can't sell it politically, but they want the de facto reality to be what it is right now, which is effectively anyone can get into the country. And, just alone on the overwhelmed border and what's going on with fentanyl and with methamphetamine, we have the worst fentanyl problem and the worst meth problem in the history of the country right now, Clay. These drugs are more potent, more powerful, more destructive than anything we have ever faced. It is all coming across the U.S.-Mexico border. And people don't... You're losing 100,000 plus Americans a year because we have lawlessness at the border. So the argument should be either we secure the border or we just say, screw it, open border is what we want, which is basically what the Democrats have done. But what we have right now is just untenable, which is the pretense that both sides want an orderly, secure border. No, they don't. The Democrats want an open border.
And the cartel controls the southern border, which ties in with why so much fentanyl is coming across, and also the business opportunity that they have created for themselves. So this, to me, is going to be, I think...
Did you see the cop that just... fortunately, she's okay. She OD'd, they believe, because fentanyl powder from a bust blew in her face from the wind. Did you see this?
Did you see that? Yeah, I saw that story. I also saw the story of the young child in a San Francisco park. I think that's still considered to be true because sometimes these stories go viral and then the follow-up. It was like a 10-month-old who was playing in the park and he picked up a fentanyl-laced, they think, piece of paper and OD'd, basically. And his nanny was there and helped to ensure that he was safe. It gives you a sense for how dangerous, because, Buck, I talk to my kids now. It used to be you would say don't do drugs. You shouldn't do it. You can get addicted to them. Now when you talk to young people, when you're talking to your kids or grandkids, you say don't do drugs. They can kill you the first time that you use them, and which is different than in the 80s and 90s by and large.
For all the parents out there listening, I spoke to the top guy in the DOJ under Trump working on the issue of fentanyl about this. And I remember he explained to me in detail the way that the cartels make pills that look like pharmaceutical grade pills so people think they're safe. Oh, I'm not taking scary fentanyl. I'm taking a Vicodin. Yeah. I'm taking something that at least has quality control. We know what's in it. So, your 17-year-old can be at a party and someone goes, oh, here, take this. Don't worry, it's a prescription drug. But if they bought it illegally, guess what? It could be fentanyl and they could die. This happens. This is not just theoretical. This happens. They could die the first time they take the drug, not even knowing what they're taking in the first place. And Clay, this problem, it's when you start to look at the numbers and the impact that it's having on society right now, and you look at methamphetamine, for example, and the role that methamphetamine has in a lot of the extreme schizophrenia, mental health issues, breakdowns that are going on. You see these crazy people walking around the streets, and I mean truly crazy, I mean not in their right mind, who are homeless and vagrants. They're drug addicts overwhelmingly, and they're addicted to fentanyl, they're addicted to meth, they're addicted to a few other drugs sometimes, depends on the individual. But look at the focus that the White House is putting on tackling that problem, which is killing over 100,000 people a year and destroying cities from the inside out, versus the focus they put on, transgender story hour and top surgery for teenagers as a function of White House policy.
Not only that, the people who are dying of fentanyl overdoses are overwhelmingly young. So when you talk about years of life lost, we're talking about people in their 20s who suddenly are dying because of this drug use. And I just want to reiterate again, because we built on it, and you said it, like, hey, you think this drug is safe and it's a party drug. There was to give them credit, I think it was the New York Times had a story about 3 different people who thought they were buying cocaine and took it home and used it, and it was fentanyl-laced drug, and it killed all 3 of them. And they never even knew. You shouldn't use drugs at all, right, is an easy thing to tell your kids. But a lot of kids say, well, I'll use this because it's not dangerous. No. People are thinking that they are using drugs which are not deadly, and they're consenting to those usage, and then the next thing you know, they're dead because they're not using the drug that they thought they were. It's such an important part here of the conversations that parents and grandparents need to have.
There should be a bipartisan sense of we have to do everything we can to fix this problem as a country right now, but it ties directly into the border, and the Democrats don't want to admit that, and they don't want to deal with it, and so people are going to keep dying. That's what's happening.
And as we mentioned yesterday, Buck, there's like one media guy that actually is covering the border in Bill Melugin, right? I mean, almost no one. Yeah, think about how crazy it is. Who can you point to from the Washington Post, New York Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC? They don't have anybody there. There's nobody covering this on a daily basis.
And it's amazing, too. They used to always say the way they would shut down any criticism of illegal immigration, they'd say, why are you so racist? And they particularly would single out, why are you so racist, against Mexican people who want to come here and are hardworking? There are 160 countries that have sent people. I mean, it's literally the entire planet has realized, hey, I want to get into America. I don't want to go through their immigration system. It has nothing to do with any individual or specific race or nationality or anything else. It is just utter chaos and lawlessness. And the Biden administration, he can't even go. Won't even go to the border. Doesn't care.